This morning we're going to continue on with that. I don't know if you guys celebrated Columbus Day. Did anybody have like a Columbus Day party? I know those are really big these days. Nobody really celebrates Columbus Day anymore. Like even our kids weren't out of school on Columbus Day. They had random like a Wednesday off in the middle of the week this week, which really wasn't cool. Because I don't know when in our culture we stopped celebrating guys who get lost and pretend like they knew where they were going all along. That's something to celebrate. Like, that's a good thing. And so anyways, I guess we're done with that part of our holiday system. So our kids had Wednesday off, and we kind of didn't know what to do with them. And so we decided we hopped in the car, and we took off for the happiest place on earth. Right? And so we went over there on Wednesday. We spent the morning getting over there. And we dropped Janessa off. Janessa, if you're wondering where she's at, she's doing some grad school stuff up in Minnesota. And so she's up there right now. So we dropped her off at the airport. We took off for Disney. And if you've ever taken children to Disney, you know that they have the things they want to do in their heads. Like they have all the things mapped out in their heads of the places they want to go. My daughter Jane, every time we go, we need to meet Rapunzel. We need to go see Rapunzel every time. And in Jane's head, it's not so that she can meet Rapunzel, but so that more that Rapunzel can meet her. Right? It's like, because Rapunzel obviously got out of that obstructive tower just so she could come down and live in a castle at Disney World so that Jane could come see her. Like, that's why. She couldn't stay in that tower anymore because she had to meet Jane, obviously, right? So Jane has this in her head. She's like, I gotta get to Rapunzel. Rapunzel's missing me. She's not gonna get to see me if I don't go see her. And so anyways, Jane has this whole plan of all the princesses she needs to meet, all the things she needs to do. Now Oliver, my son, he has this idea of he needs to go shoot anything that will allow him to shoot. If there is a ride or something with guns, he needs to go shoot them. The kid doesn't have any access to guns. I don't know where this is like. It's just a boy thing. He's like, I need to go shoot those aliens from Toy Story real bad. Again, if I don't save our universe from toy aliens, who will? So he's got this agenda of where he needs to go. And they start, going into it because they're like, I need to go here and I need to go here. Now the thing is, as you know, they don't even know all the things they don't know about this park. They don't know all the places they haven't been. They don't know how it works. They don't know wait times. They don't have any concept of how this is all going to come together. They just know where they want to go and what they want to do at the times they want to do it, right? That's all they know. And so when we get there, immediately we walk in and we're like, listen guys, we're really not going to any of the things you want to do today. We have fast passes set up where we're going to go to this thing, and this thing, and this thing. And now we're going to get to things you're going to like. I guarantee you're going to like what we're going to do. But we are not going to the things you want to do. Rapunzel, we've seen her like 800 times. She actually requested a break from you for a little bit. And somebody else is taking care of the aliens today, bud. Like, it's not your day for it. Okay, you're not on the rotation because it's a Wednesday. So you're not on the rotation for shooting aliens. And we're like, we're going to try some new things because we've done all these other things. We're going to try something different. We're going to go play places we haven't been before. And they're like, this is stressing them out. And they're like, so when are we going to go? When are we going to do these things? And they're just arguing back and forth about which is most important, when we should go where, how we should do these things. And finally, my sweet little wife, she stops them. We're like in the middle of the park. She's like, stop, stop, stop. And we stop. And she gets down in their little faces, which isn't as hard for her as it is for me, but she gets down near the little faces and she's like, listen. And she gives them this little speech. She's like, here's the thing, guys. Today, Daddy's already made an entire plan for the day. Daddy's got a plan for today. You're going to like the plan. You're going to like the things we're going to do. You're going to enjoy it. We have things on there that we know you like. You're going to enjoy the entire day. But Daddy's already got it planned out. You just need to sit back and trust Daddy. You need to trust what Daddy's got planned for us today. Now, have you ever had this moment where you're suddenly forced into trusting someone? And it doesn't come as naturally as we think it should. We aren't naturally trusting people. Trust is kind of a hard thing. It's earned. It's not just given, right? Trust is a hard thing to get. And sometimes we have to sit down and say, but I need you to trust me. Now, that's a hard thing for us. Now, some of us, we may be living, if we're talking about this doubt series, as we look at doubt, some of us may be living really heavily in just doubt. And just like I would say, I am like 75-25 doubt. Like I live in this 75% I'm doubt type of world. And I have more doubts than I have answers. I have more doubts than I have faith. I have more doubts than I have beliefs. And I definitely have more doubt than I have trust. Some of us live in the world where we have some faith. We have some belief. We believe certain things. And we believe things, but we haven't allowed them to let us trust God or trust the church or trust the people around us. We haven't allowed ourselves to trust yet. We just believe certain things. There's a big difference. And maybe you're in this world where you live fully in trust, and that's great. But there's a difference between trust and faith. Trust and just belief are not the same thing. There was a guy, he was one of the most famous tightrope walkers of all time. I only know that because he's the only tightrope walker I've ever heard of, so I'm guessing he's one of the most famous. I don't know, there's like a hall of fame for tightrope walkers, but he's got to be top 3 because he's the only name I know. His name is Nik Wawrinka, and he was the first tightrope walker to walk across Niagara Falls. You remember this? Like, this was a big deal back in the day. So Nik Wawrinka, he shows up, he comes to America, and he decides, I'm going to tightrope walk across Niagara Falls. Now, he sets up his tightrope. I don't even know how that part of the process goes. Like, how do you just set up a tightrope across Niagara? Like, that seems like a whole another situation where there should be a hall of fame for people who set up tightropes in scary situations. But anyways, he sets up this tightrope across Niagara, and he would tightrope walk across it. He would go back and forth, and he would do the stick thing, but then he got more adventurous and go without the stick, and he'd just walk it. And then he got to this place where he'd take a wheelbarrow across, and all this different stuff. And people would show up and they would watch him, and they'd pay him money and watch Nik Wawrinka cross the tightrope. There came a point where he got so good at his act that he was doing this wheelbarrow thing, and he really was like, I could probably take people with me on this wheelbarrow. And every time he would come back, he would come to the crowd, he would go across with the wheelbarrow, and it would just be him and the wheelbarrow, nobody in it. He'd go across, and he'd go all the way across, and he'd come all the way back, showing them, I can do this with the wheelbarrow. Like I'm doing, watch. He comes all the way back over, and he would get to the crowd again, and he would say, now listen, who believes I can do this? Who believes I can walk across that again with the wheelbarrow? Everybody's hand would go up. I believe you can walk across that with the wheelbarrow. Yeah, you just showed us. Yeah, you can walk across it. And then he would go, okay, now who wants to get in the wheelbarrow? Suddenly all the hands went down. I'm not sure why, but nobody would ever volunteer for that part. So there's a big difference between believing something and actually trusting something. We don't always live in the world of trust. We live in the world of belief. We believe something could happen. We believe in maybe even God, or maybe we believe in the church or whatever. We don't really trust it yet. And I want to talk about that a little bit today because I think trust is such a vital part, if we're going to talk about doubt, to not just to skip towards belief, but to really skip towards trust. I think that's very important. But I don't know that trust happens outside of relationships. I don't know that you can form trust with somebody without having a relationship with them, right? It's kind of how this works. You build trust in relationships. There's actually a study done not that long ago about marriages. And they studied marriages, specifically marriages of people who've been married for more than 50 years. People who've been married for a long time. And they studied these marriages, and they found, marriage couples that were happy. And they said, you're still married over 50 years, you're happy with each other, like you seem to enjoy life together. How are you doing that? And they started to ask them questions about the relationships. And the study took months and months and months. And they found that if they were to boil down the common thread of happy marriages that lasted the longest, the thing they found to be the common thread, this is what they said, was that the way that a happy married couple would interact is they would give one another the benefit of the doubt. They found this to be a common thread. So instead of certain relationships where they found that somebody would blame the other party, where maybe one of them made a decision and the other one would go, why would you make that decision? So it would be like, yeah, Bill's out there and he just blew all of our life savings and Bill's a moron. Maybe the spouse is thinking, yeah, Bill, he wouldn't have done that without having a good reason for it. He probably thought he was doing the right thing. Now, I'm still a little ticked off he blew our life savings, but Bill meant well. There's no way he didn't, right? Like he meant to do the right thing. Or spouses where they'd be like, she's always talking to the people, she's not home on time or whatever. Well, she probably, it's realizing she's an extrovert, she likes to talk to other people, and she's probably not trying to be mean and not come home on time and not talk to me right on time the way I want my structured day to go. But realizing that this is the way she's wired and she means well, she's not trying to hurt me, it's just the way that she's wired. right? They said this is a common thread in healthy, vibrant relationships. And it goes from not just believing the best about that other person, but trusting their intentions. Not just believing the best about them, but trusting their intentions. Giving them the benefit of the doubt. It's hard for us to trust the intentions of God, though, isn't it? I think there's times where that's very hard. Because we only work with his actions. We just look at the sum of his actions. We don't get to know his intentions sometimes. We don't look for his intentions. We don't have a relationship with him to understand his intentions. I think it's a very difficult thing for us. I was talking with David Holowinski this week, and I was talking about some of these things, and David brought up a really great point. And his son goes to the same preschool as my son, and David and Lisa got called into the office one day, and they had to go meet with the administration of the school. And their son had apparently, he'd hit another kid. Now, this is not uncommon among boys in preschool, right? But they go in and they hear from this teacher, and the other parents were a little bit upset because their son had gotten hit, and apparently that's how it works. And so they go in and they're meeting with this teacher. And immediately, when you start talking about this, and you start meeting with people about it, what do you start doing? Well, you start going, well, we know our son, he's a good kid. And were they just playing like tag that got a little carried away? Or was it like, did the other kid provoke him to hit him? Were they, what was going on? What's the whole scenario? Because I know my kid, and he's not that kind of kid. I know Evan. I know he's not that kind of kid. I know he's not just one that goes out and like hits kids. So you start wondering about that. I was at Chick-fil-A the other day, and my son Oliver is in the play area, and I'm talking with some people not in the play area, and this lady, she goes in, she grabs the door, and she walks into the play area, that humid, like nasty play area situation, you know what I'm talking about, where it smells like feet. Anyway, she comes back out, and yeah, I'm all for whatever play area allows them to keep their shoes on, because I don't need to smell it all day. That's just so. She comes out of the play area, and the humidity and the feet waft out of there, and she comes back out and she's like, "Whose son is wearing a blue shirt?" And I was like, "I guess mine is. I don't know. As he's the only boy in there." She's like, "He's wearing a blue shirt?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "He pinned my daughter down, and then he started hitting her." And I was like, "Wow, this got real. Like, where did you even learn that?" And so I pull Oliver out, and I'm like, "What did you do, dude? Like, what's your deal?" And he's crying already. He's like, "Am I in trouble?" I was like, "Yeah, you're in trouble. Did you pin a little girl there?" I was like, "Well, I fell." I was like, "You fell?" He's like, "Yeah, I fell on her." And if you know my son, he's pretty clumsy. Like, this is not a shock for little twinkle toes. The kid runs on his toes all the time. He falls down all the time. His heels have not touched the ground since the day he was born. Like, his shoes are all worn out on the toe, but the heel is looks brand new on every pair. And I was like, "Yeah, you were running around on your toes and then you fell over?" And he's like, "Yeah, I fell on her." And he's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I was like, "I know, bud. We still can't fall on people. That's still bad." But you're looking for giving him the benefit of the doubt, right? I'm looking for his intentions more than his actions. If I'm the other mom, all I see is your son's laying on top of my daughter. Like, your son fell on my daughter. He hurt my daughter. That's all we see is the actions. That's all you see if you're the other parent. But when we are in a relationship with somebody, when we know somebody, we see it as what's their intention. But what was he trying to do? He was probably just trying to go play harmlessly with all the other kids. And he just happens to run on his toes. That's what we see. We see the intention. We don't see the action. I think that's a very difficult thing for us to do, especially when it comes to our relationship, our understanding of God. If we're not in a relationship with him, it's very difficult to understand him because we don't see his intentions. We only see his actions. There's a verse where Jesus talks about this, and it's in John 16, verse 33. It says this. Jesus says to his disciples, he tells them this, and I love this, that he says, "I tell you this, I have told you these things, so that in me you may have peace." I love this. He's saying, "I'm going to give you peace, and here's how I'm going to give you peace. In this world you will have trouble." So there's your peace, guys. So, just, doesn't that make you feel better? In this world, you will have trouble. I love that Jesus doesn't sugarcoat this. He doesn't try to sell them something. He's not saying, here's the life of luxury, and it's called Christianity. He's not saying that. He's saying, this is going to be difficult. In this world, you will have trouble. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying to you. Even if you have strong faith, even if you have walked with God for many years, even if you would call yourself a Christian, in this world you will have trouble. It's just going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it. It's a fallen world. It's going to happen. In this world you will have trouble. There may be times where it seems like the hand of God is stopped moving, and it stopped moving in your favor, and no longer is he active, no longer is he doing things. It may feel as though the hand of God has stopped, but then what he turns it to is not from the hand of God, but to the heart of God. He says, but take heart, because I've overcome the world. But take heart, for I have overcome the world. See, there are times where it feels like the hand of God has stopped, but we have to not look at the hand of God, we look at the heart of God. And the heart of God is still good. The heart of God is still there. We don't get to see his actions anymore, but there are times where it feels like the actions have stopped, but his intentions are still that he is still good and he is still God. As we sang earlier, that your good and your love is great. He's still good. He's still God. Right? But we don't get to see his hand at work. It feels like the actions have stopped, and we have to look to his intentions. And I want to look real quickly. I know that this is one of those things where you're like, oh no, we're just not getting into a scripture. We're just not going to get into a story. I know how this goes. I've sat in the seats before and listened to pastors do this. And you're like, it's only 15 minutes in and we're just now starting. Yes, that was my whole introduction. So for the next hour and a half, we're going to just kick into this story real quick. I just want to look really quickly at a story of Abraham and Sarah. And I love their story, and we really won't spend a ton of time on this, but I love the story of Abraham and Sarah because Abraham is listed, he is known, his byline is he is the forefather of our faith. He is considered the most faithful man to have followed God. His faith is what people talk about. To this day, Abraham's faith is well known, but that doesn't mean it didn't come without some doubts. Doesn't mean that it didn't come without some trust issues with God. And I want to look at a story between Abraham and Sarah. See, God's been promising Abraham a son for many, many years. And Abraham's 100 years old, and that's not an exaggeration. He's getting older. And he's still without a son. In fact, God's been promising them this son so much that they actually start to completely lose faith that God's ever going to do this. He's been telling them so much. In fact, in Exodus, there's this great line in Exodus 18, or in Genesis 18, where this angel comes to Sarah. I love this. And this angel comes in and says, where is Sarah, your wife? This is Abraham's wife. The visitors, these angels ask. And Abraham replies, she's inside the tent. And then one of them says, I will return to you about this time next year, and your wife Sarah will have a son. And Sarah was listening to this conversation from the tent. Abraham and Sarah were both very old by this time, and Sarah was long past the age of having children, so she silently laughed to herself and said, how could a worn-out woman like me enjoy such pleasure, especially when my husband is also so old? It's nice. Then, I love this, then the Lord says to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh? Why did she say, can an old woman like me have a baby? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return about this time next year, and Sarah will have a son. And then I love this, because Sarah denied it, saying, I didn't laugh. But Abraham said, no, you did laugh. This whole marital thing's been going on for a long time now. I didn't laugh because you did. I didn't laugh at God. I heard you laugh at God. God heard you laugh at God. Not cool, Sarah. I mean, they're so tired of this. They've been told this for years and years that they're going to have a son, and they're really having a hard time buying into it. In the words of the Backstreet Boys, quit playing games with my heart, God. You got to stop doing this. Are we going to have a son or are we not going to have a son? We've got to get past this. They're trying to figure this out. And so God, he's told them this over and over and over again. And in chapter 15 is where we'll kind of stick for just a little bit here. But there's this really interesting story that kind of happens. And I love it because it shows us the discipline between doubt and belief and even trust. So it starts in Genesis chapter 15, and that's where we'll stay. So it says, sometime later, the Lord spoke to Abram. This is when Abraham was still Abram at this point. In a vision, and said to him, do not be afraid, Abram, for I will protect you, and your reward will be great. So he's making this promise with him. And Abraham replies, O sovereign Lord, what good are all your blessings when I don't even have a son? I appreciate you're going to provide all these things, but I don't even have a son yet. And in this day, obviously, your son is your heir. It's the person you pass all of your stuff on to, right? And he's like, I don't even have a son. What good is all this stuff if I can't even have it outlive my generation? It doesn't do anything for me. And he brings it up again with God. Like, so you've said this thing about the son. Are we going to do this or not? What's happening here? Since you've given me no children, Eleazar of Damascus, a servant in my household, he will inherit all my wealth. Fine, I'll just give it to all this stuff to Eleazar. Which Eleazar is going to be like, that's not so bad. I don't know if anybody wants my vote, but I'm on board with that. But he's like, fine, I'll just give it to a servant. I won't even have a son. That's fine, God. If that's what you want to do. He's like drawing this line in the sand, right? He's saying, but that's what I need. And then he says, you have given me no descendants of my own, so one of my servants will be my heir. Then the Lord said to him, no. Your servant will not be your heir, for you will have a son of your own who will be your heir. Then the Lord took Abram outside and said to him, look up into the sky and count the stars if you can. That's how many descendants you will have. This is a big step. Now we've gone from like one son to look at all the descendants you're going to have. Like, he's not just saying, Father Abraham, you're going to have one son. He's saying, Father Abraham will have many sons. And many sons will have Father Abraham. I'll be one of them. So will you. So let's just praise the Lord. Right arm. I never understood how this got put into the song. God's faithful, see? He gave him sons. I'm going to wave my arm. Anyways, but he says, you're going to have that many sons. That's an amazing promise that he gives them. You're going to have that many sons. And this is what's interesting, is because then it says, and Abram believed the Lord. Notice, he believes what God says. Abram believed the Lord, and the Lord counted it to him as righteousness because of his faith. So he believes him. But notice the next thing. Then the Lord said, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur to the Chaldeans to give you this land as your possessions. And Abraham replies, O Lord, how can I be sure that I will actually possess these things? See, Abraham believed the Lord, but he didn't trust him still. And he wants this covenant. He's saying, now give me a sign. Give me something I can hold on to. Give me something that says, no, I'm really in this. He believes him, but he doesn't fully trust him yet. He's like, give me something more. I need a tangible expression of knowing that you're really on board, God. That you're really doing this. See, he doesn't fully trust God yet. I think a lot of us can get to that place where we might even believe there is a God. We believe that God exists. We wouldn't argue that fact, maybe. We might say, yes, God exists. But we don't want to take that next step into relationship with him where we learn to trust him. And Abraham's taking that next step, saying, I believe in you, God, but now it's just time for me to believe you. There's a big difference between believing in God and just believing God. And so he takes this next step. Okay, then give me something more. I still need to know that this is for real. So, the Lord, this is the weirdest. Okay, this part gets weird. I'm going to just apologize. This is the ritual. This is what happens, okay? This happens in multiple places in the Bible. This is not out of place for their day, but this was the custom of the day. The Lord told him, so bring me a 3-year-old heifer and a 3-year-old female goat and a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon, which those last ones are very hard to come by. Like, I don't know how you're catching these things, but rig something up, we need a turtle dove, okay? Not just a regular dove, we need one that's half turtle. Okay, so he's trying to get this turtle dove and this, and he's like, tell him all this stuff, you need to bring all this stuff in. Okay, so then he said, bring these all in. So Abraham presented all these to him and killed them. Then he cut each animal down the middle and laid the halves by each side. He did not, however, cut the birds in half. So you're lucky them. He didn't have to separate the turtle from the dove. This was not uncommon. Again, this happens in Jeremiah 43. You can see this in other places in the Bible. This ritual happens in other places in the Bible. So this isn't the first time or the only time this happens. But this was the ritual of the day. And they would take these animals, and I don't know how they did this. I don't really want to think about it too hard. But it is a weird thing. Like, they didn't have machinery to cut animals in half. They didn't have like big blades. I don't know how they did this. It sounds like whoever's job that was not a fun job. But they would literally take these animals and just cut them in half. And which is nice. Then they would take the two sides and they would put them on each side of like a road. They would put one half on each side. And they would lay the blood between the two halves. Again, I don't fully understand it, but it sounds nice. I don't know, like, if you ever did a business deal like this now, like, I don't know how this would look. Like, so do you want to buy this car or not? I don't know. I think the financing looks pretty good. I brought my turtle doves. Okay, let's do this, you know. Hey, get the heifers. We're gonna sign the papers on this car. You know, I don't know how this would work. I don't feel great about it. We'll drive the car together down the middle. It'll be really nice. So at this point, he's done all this, and he's actually done this to the point. Then it says some vultures swooped down to eat the carcasses, but Abram chased them away. Like, he's been doing this for some time now. He's been preparing this place for him and God to make this covenant where he will somehow now trust God. And he's making this place for them to have this talk. He's making this whole thing happen. And he actually takes so long. It's such a long process. Vultures start to come down and try to take the carcasses. Now he's not just having to cut animals in half. He's having to chase off vultures. It's been a long day for Abraham. There's a lot going on. He's probably exhausted. And it says this: as the sun was going down, the day is over, and God has not shown up. It says, as the sun was going down, Abraham fell into a deep sleep, and a terrifying darkness came down over him. See, God hasn't shown up. His hand is not active. The actions aren't there. And when the actions aren't there, God has not shown up. He's not going to do this thing with Abraham. Abraham's now getting terrified. He's trying to back out on the deal. Why is God backing out on the deal? I cut the animals the right way. I laid them across. I put the blood down. I did everything right. I've been here all day, God. I'm doing all the right things. Why aren't you holding up your end of the deal? This is the way we are. This isn't just him. This is all of us. His hand has stopped moving. God has stopped being active. And we start to now not just doubt his actions, but we're doubting his intentions. He never was good. I never was going to get that son. This never was going to work out. So we stop looking at his actions. We start doubting his intentions. When his hand's not moving, we start to doubt his heart as well. We do the same thing all the time. I don't just relate to Abraham as like a father of faith and in his doubts in his faith stage. I don't just relate to him in that. I relate to him honestly on the part of having children. There was a time where Marie and I, this about 8 years ago now, where we were young and we thought, like, it's time for us to start having kids and it's time to start having children, right? And you're like, and we're normal, healthy adults, normal-ish, and we're going to have kids, and it's time to start doing that. You know, start thinking about this. So we started trying, as you do, I guess. And we figured it would take a few months. I mean, we know it doesn't just happen, all the time right away. So we're kind of like thinking this is going to take a little while, but it's okay. But like 6 months in, we started to be like, this is getting a little weird. And Marie was like starting to like really start to notice, like, oh, this is how this should work, and this is really what should happen. And she's been reading the books and reading the blogs, and she's up to date on everything. And she's like, something's weird. This isn't working for us. So another 6 months go by, and it's been almost a year. Still nothing. No, nothing. And we're like, man, I mean, it takes people a while. It's not uncommon, But another 6 months go by, and at this point, it starts to really weigh on us. Like, something's just not happening right. We go to doctors, we go see specialists on this stuff, and as they start to talk to us, they're like, we don't know what's wrong. They did the test, they did studies, they were like, there's really nothing wrong, guys. We don't know what's happening. As another 6 months roll by, we're 2 years into this thing, and I just remember month after month, coming home and seeing my wife just in a puddle on the floor, in tears as she held another negative pregnancy test month after month after month. I just remember during that time how dark it was for us. I remember we were looking at adoption, we were looking at other options, and those are great things, those aren't bad. But it was just one of those things where it's like, God, what's happening here? Why? Why isn't this working? It seems like you're not being active in our lives, God. It seems like the actions have stopped. Your faithfulness has somehow stopped. Your goodness has somehow stopped. And now we don't just start to question your actions, we start to question your intentions. We start to question your heart, not just your hand. God, why don't you want this for us? God, do you love us? Are you hearing us? Are you still good? Are you still there? And you start to doubt. You start to have questions. And you start to not just believe. You start to go from trusting God to starting to just question your belief in God. You're like, I still believe that there's a God out there. I'm just starting to question whether he cares. And I remember another few months went by, and month after month, I just remember having this conversation with God. And the realization I hit was, one of the beautiful things about the situation is that God was still in control, whether I wanted him to be or not. And sometimes that's a very good thing. Whether you want God to be in control or not, he still is. And that's a scary thing for us to give over. It's a scary thing for us to allow him to take that from us. To take control and realize that we've never been in control in the first place. We somehow think, even when it comes to making babies, that we are in control of something. The truth is, we are not in control. Our God is the author of life, and only he makes life happen. Amen. And we had to come to grips with that and realize that. And as you watch kids, we were doing high school and college ministry and different things, and as you watch these kids that were getting pregnant from their 16-year-old, boyfriends or whatever, and you're like, how can you allow that to happen, God? And you question everything about him, and you get to this deep, deep place, but you realize that if God can make new life in us, he makes the original life as well. And we don't get to question him. We have to allow him to be the God who's in control. And we have to learn not just to trust his hand when it happens to be moving at the right times, but we have to learn to trust his heart, that he's still good, that he's still God. So we started to learn that. We started to walk through that. I remember it was April 26th, still on a whiteboard in our house, where we learned that we were pregnant for the first time with Jane. I just remember the relief that came, and somehow, suddenly, the way we were thanking God. It was so different for the way we were thanking God before, because we weren't thanking God for what he was doing to us. And all of a sudden we started to rejoice that God was active again. And he was present again. Acting as though he wasn't present during the other times, that he wasn't active. When we started to question him. But we remembered, no, God was still good even in that time. I met with Bob this week and we talked about this exact thing, because then I saw, just like my beautiful 2 kids that I have now, that I was praying for so hard then, I saw, just like they saw at a little place called Disney World, how the entire time my Father was in control, and he had a plan that was better than my plan. He already had it mapped out. He knew the things I didn't know, and I just had to learn to trust him. And the timing of us having our children was his timing, and it was better than our timing. I had to learn to submit to that. Abraham learns to submit to this in this moment, and there's this weird thing that happens after he falls asleep, and he thinks God's not going to show up. God's not coming today. He's not going to be here. His actions have stopped, and we start to question his intentions. He falls asleep, and then it says this: after the sun went down and darkness fell, Abraham saw a smoking fire pot, which is a weird term. Like I picture like a fire pit, like a UFO that's on fire, like flying through. But anyways, the smoking fire pot and flaming torch passed between the halves of the carcasses. Now, in these days, this is a precursor to the pillar of fire that the Israelites would see in Exodus. This is what God looked like. This is the way they would describe God's presence. That he saw God's presence go through there. And so the Lord had made a covenant with Abraham that day. Abraham fell asleep believing nothing was going to happen, that God was not going to be faithful, that God was not going to be good. But he wakes up and he sees God's presence going and saying, listen, here's the deal with this covenant thing, guys. I actually don't need you to make this covenant. I'm God, and I'll make the covenant with you. Allow me to be God. And it's this precursor of what happens with Jesus, where somehow we think we have something to do with not just the origination of life, but we have something to do with eternal life, or we have something to do with new life, where we think we can earn it, where we think we deserve it, where we think we can do all the right things, and God's saying, no, you can't do those things. Let me tell you, only I can do that for you, and so allow me to do it. And even when we doubt God's goodness, when we doubt that He is still there, when we doubt His actions, we can still trust His intentions. Even when we doubt His hand at work, we can still trust His heart, that it's still good. Today, I don't know where you're at in your relationship with God. I don't know if you have a relationship with God. Maybe you're in that spot where you're like, I've had belief in God for quite some time. I believe there is a God. I believe He exists. Maybe you've been in that spot for a while. Maybe you've been in a spot where you're in more doubts than faith, and that's fine too. But I don't think you're going to learn to trust God without being in relationship with God. And so I don't want it to be like a blanket prayer. We're not going to do anything like that, of like praying for for you to come back to God. I don't think that's how that works. I do think if you need to pray, this would be a good time to do so as we sing. But it's not just one prayer that puts you back in good standing with God. It's not how this works. It's a relationship. That prayer is a starting point of a relationship with God. It's not just one prayer. It's a series of conversations that happen. That's how we learn to trust God, is day in, day out, conversation with Him. Getting to know Him, getting to know not just when His hand moves, but what His heart is. Not just seeing what His actions are, but learning what His intentions are too. And if you haven't been in that place where you're in a daily conversation with God of some sort, just start it. Just begin the conversation. Just start talking to God. I promise you He's listening. Just start the conversation again. I think too many of us, me included, we forget about that relationship too often, and then we wonder why we don't trust Him enough. Because we're not in relationship with Him. We're not seeing His heart. We're just looking for His hand. So if you would like to do that today, you're welcome. Glenda and I'll be available after service to pray with you. But you're welcome, even as we sing these last songs and spend some time in this. If you don't want to sing, that's fine. If you want to just stand and you want to talk to God, if you want to pray to God, you can do it silently right where you're at and rekindle that relationship. So that's how you're going to know the heart of God. So if you need to do that during this time, you're more than welcome to. It's your time. We are going to sing about our doubts and our faith, and ultimately our trust of our God. If you would, let's stand together, we're going to pray. God, I thank you so much for being a God who's always active, even at times where it feels like your hand has stopped moving. I thank you for being a God who constantly is good, constantly is in control. That you are constantly God, even when it feels like you're not there. And God, I apologize personally for the times where I've started to doubt you, and not just because of the doubts that I have in the natural human intellectual side of me, but God, the part of me that doubts you because I'm not in a relationship with you. Because I haven't put my effort in. And so God, I pray that you would show us today what it looks like to be in a relationship with you. Remind us what that feels like. God, if we're afraid of taking that first step, God, I pray that you would just allow us just those simple first words to speak to you again. To begin the conversation with you again. Allow us to deepen our relationship with you. And by deepening our relationship with you, we deepen our trust with you, and we learn to trust you again. God, I pray for the people who are going through difficult times right now, where it feels like your hand has stopped moving, God. And I know there are people in this room that are going through that right now. God, I pray that you would remind them of your heart, that you would show them your heart, and that your intentions are still good even when the actions seem like they're not there. I pray you would give them just the ability to keep moving, to keep going, to continue to be in a relationship with you even when it's hard. Pray that you would just let us talk to you during this time, speak to you, sing to you, whatever it may be. Open up our relationship with you again. Pray, sing to your name. Amen.
Quiet the voice